Now, this is interesting, and it really tells us a great deal. And I'm going to ask you all a question.
So I'll pay attention.
I would like to.
Okay.
Hail the Flashlight King.
Hail you.
The question, I'm going to give you the question before I read this.
So I'll write it down.
Is it the question of the day?
You put it in the form of a question?
The question will be, what does this say about us?
About us.
Right? Here's the email. Can you give me an answer to a big question I have? In the new law that was sold as a cure for inflation, some $5 billion has been allocated to pay for electric vehicle charging stations around the country. I've done a bit of searching on the web to see how much money the federal or state governments paid to set up the gas stations we have pretty much everywhere. And as near as I can tell, there was no money spent by progressive presidents of the era, like Teddy Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson. There was also nothing spent by some fairly conservative administrations like William Howard Taft, Warren G. Harding, and Calvin Coolidge. Keep in mind that this was the time that an entirely new industry began producing a product that eliminated the incredible amounts of pollution that plagued every city and town in America. Manure from horses filled large areas of every street until it could be removed. That filth made for very unhealthy urban living. When the automobile came along, that pollution pretty much disappeared in 2 decades with no government help. Instead, entrepreneurs around the country worked with the oil companies and set up distribution systems that went from one end of the country to the other. Those businesses were most often mom and pop stations that employed thousands of people everywhere. Oh, and along the way, the product they were moving had special taxes added to the cost of the fuel to pay for all the roads that were needed to make travel convenient.
Okay.
Now our government is paying for the fueling stations. And while the users have to pay for the electricity they are using, they are not being charged for the damage the vehicles are doing to the roads. After all, each EV weighs about what petroleum vehicles weigh. Their tires for both are the same. They travel at the same speeds. That means they contribute to the destruction of roads equally, and yet the EVs aren't paying for that damage. Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right. You and me are paying for EV plug-in stations.
I disagree with
We
that.
never paid for a gas station. What does that say about us?
It says we're pathetic.
You're on the right track.
We're suckers.
Well, you're on the right track.
We're
So
turning into a socialist nation, whether we want to or not.
you're getting there.
Let
Yes.
me take a stab at it.
Yes.
We've acquiesced to the idea that we've got this on our own. The fact that we have now just relied on the government for every aspect of our life.
Absolutely. The people are no longer ruling the government. The government is ruling the people.
That I will accept that.
I was going to say that.
I know you would. My answer was, this tells us that we are becoming smaller and smaller citizens. We are becoming smaller. Has anyone raised a fuss about this? You know, back in 1950, Bert and his brother-in-law Billy built a gas station on the corner of 5th and Main. I didn't pay for it.
Right.
They paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm expected to pay for electric vehicle charging stations because the government is going to tell us what we're going to drive, and they're going to provide the means to fuel it.
Go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
Okay, why did we skip this step? Why wasn't there
Because we
electric charging guys, Ray and Tom over there, they wanted to put in a charging station that you had to pay for. You had to drop $10 in there and it'll charge up to 3 hours.
It's worse than that because it's gotten to the point where the president himself has even demonized the ma and pa gas station owner. Remember a couple of months ago when it surfaced that they went after not only just big oil, but all the gas stations that were charging people so much money. And then it was explained, well, this is how gas prices work.
And a slight correction, Such, to your theory. We did pay for it, but we paid for it through capitalism, the way it should be. They came up with a product and an idea, and we liked it. We bought it, and we put their kids through college, and that's the American way.
Right. We bought their gasoline. We didn't buy their bricks and mortar.
Right.
But that's what you're buying now. You're buying the bricks and mortar to establish an electric vehicle charging station. The bigger the government, the smaller the citizen.
Yeah.
And this government right now is so impossibly big that there's not even a second thought given to them instructing us that you will pay for the electric charging stations. I don't want to pay for
I don't
them.
want to pay a dime.
Okay.
A dime.
When did this start? Biden's first day?
Oh, no.
Obama's first day?
Precedes Biden is certainly, or Obama is certainly complicit.
Was Bush? Was Trump?
Oh, it's just been a gradual enlarging of the government.
Nibbled to death.
We've been nibbled to death by ducks, and that duck is now a monster. It's grown into a monster. I don't want to pay for these things.
Quack, quack.
Is that a special monster duck?
I didn't have to pay for a gas station.
Right. Well,
So if I wanted the gas, I drove my car there and bought the gas.
Fill me in here, fellas. If I pull in, like my reference here is the Target in Alexandria. They've got 3 or 4 or 5 charging stations. Do I pay for that? If I pull in there and hook up, am I paying for a charge or am I getting that free?
Well, you'd have to ask Target. I have no idea. I would imagine it's free. But
yeah, I don't
nothing
know.
is free. Somebody's paying for it.
I do recall on one of my dum-dum runs, I pulled up, I think I was in Colorado, and I remember pulling up and the gas station was almost 50% fuel, 50% charging stations. And I don't recall seeing any of the, the credit card things that you would find on a gas pump. I don't believe they had any of those on the charging station pump or pump, whatever you call it, plugins.
Just think of that, GLers. You are not only seeing states mandate the end of the purchase of gas-powered vehicles. You are seeing the mandating that you will provide the charging mechanisms. We are shrinking mightily in our citizenship. I don't like any of this. This isn't.
We're saps is what we are. We're saps that we're allowing this to continue to happen. It goes unchecked.
Let's do some math here.
Oh boy.
We received an email, I think yesterday. I was gone, sorry. From a guy or a gal whose husband or relative bought an EV, paid $100,000 for it. So in theory, if that guy never has to pay for a charge, will that car in fact be cheaper to run in the long run? You know what does that make sense?
Yeah.
That question?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, the government is not the government. We are paying for the charging stations, but for all I know, if you're driving from here to Omaha and you stop at a charging station, for all I know, you will be charged a fee.
Okay, then who gets that money?
The government.
Ugh. And in this case,
Or
the government,
maybe
not us.
Maybe the utility.
So not us. It's not a co-op where the United States citizens that pay taxes are going to receive a check at the end of the year for all the electricity we sold.
We're not going to have enough electricity.
Well,
we're just not going to have enough.
Well,
I mean, the
good
same
afternoon.
government that tells you to turn down your air conditioning because of a stress on the power grid is telling you have to buy an electric car.
Say that again. Say that
The
again.
same government that puts out an urgent cry to please turn down your thermostats because there's stress on the power grid and freeze your balls off in the winter because we don't have any heat to provide. They're telling you to buy an electric car. Well, what the hell? Let's just back it up. Back the truck up. Let's pack it. We're done.
That
done.
is the most ludicrous true statement I've ever heard.
It's
Wow.
over.
Yeah, it is.
It's. I don't know how it can get worse, but I will tell you. I'm going to tell you how it's getting worse. Gas prices in California overnight increased by the largest amount in 7 years. in 7 years. Just a day after Californians saw gas top $6 a gallon for regular, gas prices made their largest jump in 7 years overnight. Officials are blaming California's higher prices on planned and unplanned refinery maintenance, which is slowing oil production. Hurricane Ian could also disrupt production in the Gulf of Mexico by impacting large coastal refineries. Biden, is this Wednesday?
Yes.
Yes.
Biden today warned gas companies not to use the hurricane as an excuse to gouge the American people. Isn't that also a very common theme? That the first thing Mysterians think of when it comes to a private company is they're out to gouge you.
Yes.
How many Priuses sped to the scene of Ian?
0.
How many solar-powered vehicles sped to the scene of Ian?
None to my knowledge.
Now we learn, where is it? I might as well stay on this theme. Now we learn. Where is it? I got it. OPEC is cutting production.
Well, that
Yeah.
ought to help.
Oh, if that doesn't, well, OPEC is going to cut oil production by 2 million barrels a day because they don't like the fact that the price of a barrel fell. It's roughly $80 a barrel. And that's down from $120 a barrel in early June. And these Arabs say, "Well, the hell with you people. We'll choke you to death until we get it back up to where we like it." The group of some of the world's most powerful oil producers on Wednesday, again today, agreed to impose deep output cuts, seeking to spur a recovery in prices despite calls from the U.S. to pump more to help the global economy. So the same people
Yep.
that demonize fossil fuels and have been no help to Americans attempting to produce their own or more of their own energy are now begging OPEC, don't do this. Pump more to help us. God helps those who help themselves.
Right.
We should be pumping our own oil. And there's a variety of reasons we are and we're not, and where and how, and we've been through all of this. But this is pathetic.
And the sad part about this is you wish that in some way these types of decisions would only affect the people that are making these types of decisions. The problem is it's affecting everybody.
Russia's in on it. Russia and
No, of course.
Saudi Arabia will cut somewhere between 500,000 and 2 million barrels. The move represents a major reversal in production policy, which slashed output by a record 10 million barrels a day in early 2020 when demand plummeted due to the pandemic. The oil cartel has since gradually unwound those record cuts, albeit with several OPEC countries struggling to fulfill their quotas. Wouldn't you love a crystal ball or some sort of wisdom to pull back the curtain and really truly understand what this pandemic has wrought
Yes.
and
Crystal
how it
ball,
happened?
magic wand.
How it happened
Where did the virus originate?
in a lab in China.
Huh. Well, that's odd.
The Washington Post is painting this as a slap to Biden to his face
It
because
is.
he said he was going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah. That's not working out so well for him, is it? Or us?
This country has no reason to depend on anyone else for these products. Zero reason. But in this so-called Build Back Better bill, which doesn't reduce inflation, it only exacerbates it,
Build back.
there's
better.
$5-6 billion of your money committed to build electric vehicle charging stations, while in the meantime, Americans can't afford to fill their car.
Right.
And now apparently we're entering another period where we will begin to notice the increasing gas prices. This is covered poorly by journalism. they're not capable of covering it correctly because it's part of their agenda, part of their template that gas is bad. Gas came along at a time when you couldn't walk down a street in St. Paul, Minnesota because of the horse poop.
Boy, times were good back then, huh?
And now they cleaned up the horse poop, and here came these cars, and the government never stepped in and said, hey, Bert, I'm going to help you build a gas station. No, Bert and his brother-in-law took the risk to build a gas station. It's been on the corner of 5th and Main for 100 years. They'll change your oil and clean your windshield and sell you some gas, but you didn't pay for them to build a gas station.
Now you've got me thinking here. So if the government
That's
then
dangerous.
is going to essentially build all of these charging stations across the entire country,
Yep.
does that mean that they then own and operate said stations?
I would imagine so.
So if I stop into my Tesla and charge up for half an hour, but I'm going to go spend $25 grabbing something to eat and something to drink while I'm sitting there waiting for my vehicle and buying a magazine that I might read now or I might put on the shelf and read it this winter when I have more time.
Yeah, but you're talking, see, you're describing something very interesting.
That's what I do here, Joe.
I know. You're describing the way the private sector would go about it. What's the gas station chain I love? Quick Trip. Okay. Apparently, we're shortcutting Quick Trip.
Yes.
You're shortcutting Kmart or whatever.
Because you should have to pull in there, and they should have right next to the air machine.
Because if electric vehicles become so popular, the Quick Trip people of the United States would say, we got to quick build some charging stations and let's add some food stations and some clean restrooms. And then we charge you for this. We get paid for you to stop at our place and charge your bleeping electric car.
I do believe that some have already. I know in my case, the Hy-Vee that I go to has charging stations added in addition to, as far as I know, in addition to also having a gas station on the other side of the parking lot.
Okay, but what the government's doing is coming along, however belatedly, and undercutting Hy-Vee.
They're skipping that step.
Right.
Like
They're going to come along and say, it'll be like restrooms. The state has provided restrooms on your journey. So you don't have to go to a gas station.
Yeah.
Rest stops.
Yes.
Is the word I'm
rest
thinking
stops,
of.
yeah.
Yeah.